I remember that night too clearly. Not because of the cold, but because my kids were shaking in my arms, and I had nothing left to give them. That's the part that stays with you. It anymore. Boston winter hit hard that night. The wind on Tremont Street didn't slow down for anyone. It cut straight through my coat like it wasn't even there. I had both kids pressed into me, holding them tight, trying to trap whatever little warmth we had left. Their heads were against my chest, breathing light, uneven, the kind of breathing that makes you stay still, just to listen. A bus passed, didn't stop. Someone walked by, looked at us, then kept going, like we were just part of the street. And I remember thinking, people don't ignore you all at once, they just stop choosing you. My phone buzzed in my hand, battery almost gone. I stared at the screen for a long second. There was only one person I could reach out to. Lily, not family, but close enough, or at least she used to. Is B. I didn't want to send that message. I really didn't. Asking for help like that. It does something to you. But then I looked at my kids, and that feeling didn't matter anymore. I typed with fingers I could barely feel. Can we stay with you tonight? Just until morning. The kids are freezing. I hit send. Didn't even realize I typed the number wrong. Just one digit off. A few blocks away, Noah was walking out of another late meeting, the kind that leaves you tired but still wired. He told me later the building felt too warm that night, too quiet, like something was off. His phone buzzed. He thought it was work. It's always work with him. But when he looked down, he froze. My message. My name. 6 years. And I just appeared like that. No call. No explanation. I had disappeared from his life like none of it mattered, and now the first thing he hears from me is, "We need help." He didn't think, didn't question it, just said, "Tremont Street, now." When the car pulled up, he stepped out before it even stopped. I saw him, and for a second, I thought I was just seeing things. But it was him, real, standing right there. He looked at the kids first, then at me. Are they warm enough? I almost said yes. Just to end it. Just to not owe him anything. We'll manage, I told him. You should go. He didn't move. Just stepped closer. Let me help, just tonight. I was about to say no. I really was. Then my daughter coughed. That dry, weak sound. The kind that makes your chest tighten instantly. And just like that, I didn't have the strength to refuse anymore. I nodded. Once. The ride was quiet. The heater slowly warming the car, melting the cold off our clothes. My kids leaned into me, breathing softer now. Noah didn't say anything. Just stared ahead. Like he had 100 things to ask, but didn't trust himself to start. When we got there, he opened the door like it was already decided. I stepped inside, not looking at how nice it was. I wasn't thinking about that. I just needed to know it was safe. Guest rooms are down the hall. It's warmer there, he said. I looked at him for a second. Thank you, just for tonight. I needed to say that part. Just for tonight, he repeated. But the way he said it didn't feel that simple. Inside the room, I laid my daughter down, then crouched to take off my son's boots, my hands moving automatically, like they've learned to do this without thinking. I could feel him still standing there, quiet. 6 years. And this is how we saw each other again. There are clean towels in the bathroom. I'll have food sent up, he said. I didn't look at him this time. Thank you, but just tonight. I said it again. Maybe not for him. Maybe because I wasn't ready to face what happens if it isn't. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door, and for the first time that night, my kids looked like kids again. Not cold, not scared, just hungry. Room service came in with bowls of chicken soup still steaming, warm bread, and hot cocoa with marshmallows already sinking into the top. Both of them lit up right away. That look hit me harder than I expected, because it reminded me how little it takes to make children happy, and how heavy it feels when you can't even give them that. I told them, softly, to eat slow. But I barely looked at the food. I kept staring out the window, watching the snow move under the streetlights. Like if I looked long enough, maybe I wouldn't have to think about where I was, or who had opened that door for me. Noah stood near the table with his hands in his pockets, pretending to check his phone. But I could feel him noticing everything. The way I smoothed my daughter's hair without thinking. The way my son tried to hide that small cough. The way I kept acting like I was holding it together when I was already running on nothing. When the kids finished eating, Noah gathered the dishes and set them by the door without saying much. I pulled the blanket up over the twins after they curled together on the sofa. Then he told me I could take the bedroom because it was warmer. I said no. Right away, told him I'd stay there with them. A voice probably came out sharper than I meant it to. But I needed one thing to still feel like mine. He paused, like he wanted to say something. Maybe argue. Maybe ask why I was still making everything so hard. But he didn't. He just nodded and said good night. I didn't answer at first. But when he turned away, I heard myself whisper it back, so quietly it almost didn't count. Morning came in slowly through those tall windows. Pale light across the room. The kind that makes everything feel too still for a second. I woke up with a blanket over me. I knew I hadn't put there. My daughter was asleep beside me, one hand tucked against my side. My son was already awake on the rug, flipping through a picture book he must have found on the table. And Noah was in the kitchen like he'd been up for hours. Sleeves pushed back, pouring coffee. The smell of toast and eggs filled the room in the way that felt too normal, too warm, too close to a life I didn't trust myself to want. When I sat up, he just looked over and said, "Breakfast's ready." Simple like that. No big moment, no pressure. The kids stayed close as I walked over. My son grabbed toast first, but kept looking between Noah and me like he was trying to figure something out that children always feel before adults say it out loud. I told Noah he didn't have to do this. He looked right at me and said, "It's just breakfast." That was all. And somehow, that made it harder. Because kindness lands different when you're already trying not to need it. We ate mostly in silence. Just forks, plates, little giggles when my son tried to make his sister laugh. And I could feel Noah watching those small moments. The way I always looked softer with my kids, until I noticed him looking and remembered to shut that part down. Again. After breakfast. He checked the time and said he had a meeting in 2 hours, then offered to have a driver take us anywhere we needed to go. I straightened up right away and told him we'd be fine, that we wouldn't stay past today. There was a pause after that, one of those quiet ones where nobody says the real thing. Then he said, "At least let him get something for the kids. Warm clothes, groceries, no strings." I was already about to refuse. Then my son coughed again. Dry. Rougher this time. And every thought in my head stopped right there. Noah heard it too. I could see it in his face. He said he could take us to a doctor immediately, like he'd already made up his mind. Before I had. I hesitated. Then nodded once and told him only the doctor. That's it. A little while later we were back outside. The morning cold, still hard, but quieter than the night before. Snow cracked under our shoes as we walked. Noah stayed half a step ahead and held the clinic door open for us. Inside, the heat hit my skin so fast it almost made me dizzy. A nurse led us to pediatrics, She took my son's temperature, smiled toward Noah, and said, "Dad can fill these out here." My head came up so fast I felt it in my neck. Noah had already taken the clipboard. His pen stopped for 1 second when it reached parent or guardian. Then, he wrote his name. I watched him do it and felt something twist inside. Me. Not anger. Not exactly. Something more dangerous than that. Something tied to old years I had worked very hard not to touch. When the nurse stepped away and my son was taken into the exam room, my mind was already slipping backward, to everything I had buried, to everything I never told him, and to the man standing next to me now, the man who once said he would never leave. The doctor came in calm and steady, listened to my son's breathing, checked his chest, then told me it was a mild respiratory infection. Medicine, fluids, rest. He'd be okay in a few days. And I swear, I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath until that moment, when it finally left me. My son's cough didn't scare me because it was loud. It scared me because I knew what it meant. It meant I had let things go too far. We were still in the clinic. Noah stood next to me, hands in his coat pockets, watching my boy sit quietly on the exam table. Too quiet. Kids don't sit like that, unless something's wrong. When the prescriptions were ready, Noah took them and paid without saying anything, like he had already decided this was his responsibility. Outside, the cold hit again. Sharp, but not as cruel as the night before. Snow falling slower now. Like the city was trying to pretend everything was under control again. "I'll drive you to the pharmacy," he said. I shook my head. "We can walk. It's close." He didn't argue, just walked beside me, and somehow that made it harder, because I didn't have anything to push against. The kids stayed close. My daughter clutching her little rabbit. My son leaning into me, heavier than usual. And I felt it. That quiet weight kids carry when they don't complain. Because kids don't always cry when something's wrong. Sometimes they just go quiet. And that's worse. At the pharmacy, Noah handled the prescriptions. I stood there pretending to compare thermometers, anything to not think about money. He came back with the bag. Didn't look at me when he asked, "Do you have enough for food this week?" I paused. Just for a second. "We'll manage." That's not what I asked. I looked at him, guarded. "We'll be fine, Noah." That word again. Fine. People say it when they're already struggling, but don't want anyone to see it. We walked back in silence. By the time we got inside, I had already decided. "We'll leave this afternoon," I said. He frowned. "Where are you going?" "That's not your concern." "It is," he said. Calm, steady. "Whether you like it or not, it is." I was about to push back. Then my son coughed again, deeper this time. Everything else stopped mattering. I dropped down beside him, rubbing his back. Noah was already there too, like it wasn't even a question. "Stay. At least until he's better," he said. I didn't answer right away, because this wasn't about a place, it was about what staying meant. But then I looked at my son, and I knew. "2 days," I said. "No more." Noah nodded. And for a second, I saw it. Relief he didn't try to hide. That night, the kids slept properly, for the first time in days. In a real bed. Not curled up wherever we could. I sat alone in the living room, watching the snow fall, because thinking was harder than just staring at something that didn't expect anything from me. Noah came back from his study with 2 mugs. Set one down in front of me. "Maya," he said, quieter now. "6 years ago, why didn't you tell me?" My fingers tightened around the mug. "Because it wouldn't have changed anything. Not with your family." He leaned forward slightly. "You don't know that." I met his eyes. I do. You just never had to see it the way I did. And just like that, everything we avoided saying for years sat right there between us. Morning came softer, light slipping through the windows. I made oatmeal for the kids, simple, safe, something I could still control. Noah was already in the kitchen, pouring coffee. How's he doing? Better. No fever last night. He nodded, then hesitated. I cleared my morning. Thought maybe we could take them somewhere warm. The aquarium, maybe. I shook my head. They need rest. Not a trip. They've been stuck inside for days, he said, then paused. And so have you. I didn't answer. The kids walked out laughing about something small. Something that didn't matter. And somehow that mattered more than anything else. After breakfast, Noah stepped out and came back with 2 small winter coats, brand new. I guessed the sizes, he said. I looked at them, then at him. You didn't have to. I wanted to. And that was the problem. Because kindness like that makes it harder to leave. Later in the car, the city blurred past us. Snow on rooftops, gray streets. The kids pressed their faces to the window, pointing at lights, buses, everything. I sat between them, quiet. Because being that close to Noah again felt like standing right at the edge of something. And I knew, the moment I let myself feel anything again, I wouldn't be strong enough to walk away. I didn't expect my kids to smile like that. Not after everything. And that was the part that hit me. How fast they could light up, even after being cold too long, hungry too long. Noah paid for the tickets like it was nothing, no pause, no attention drawn to it. Inside, everything was quiet and blue. The tanks lit up their faces. The twins ran ahead, pressing their hands to the glass, completely lost in the jellyfish drifting past. I stayed a step behind, just watching, holding on to that sound, their laughter. Because when your kids go too quiet for too long, laughter starts to feel like proof they're still okay. I looked up once and caught Noah watching me instead of the tank. They're beautiful, he said. And I didn't know if he meant the jellyfish, or them, or something he shouldn't have said. Halfway through, while I guided the kids to the touch tank, Noah stepped away to take a call. I barely noticed, just assumed it was work. It always is. What I didn't know was that he was already digging, trying to piece together where I'd been all those years. Who made sure I stayed gone? When I turned back, his phone was already away, his face calm again. Too calm. Like he'd already decided something. By the time we left, the light was fading into that deep winter blue. Back at the penthouse, I helped the kids out of their coats while Noah stood near the door watching. Not strange, just like he was trying to take it all in. Then, he said my name, quiet, careful. Tomorrow, let me take them to the park. Just an hour. I want to know. My hands stopped. I didn't answer right away. Because I knew he wasn't asking for the park. He was asking for a place in their lives. And that was the one thing I kept locked down. I looked at him, then said, 1 hour. He nodded. And I saw it. That answer meant more. Then he led on. The park the next day had a thin layer of snow, soft under every step. Noah walked slowly, holding my son's mittened hand. I stayed on the other side with my daughter while she searched for squirrels like it mattered. The sun was out, cold but bright. And for a few minutes, everything felt dangerously normal, like we belonged there, like those 6 years hadn't happened. The kids ran to the playground, laughter cutting through the cold. I stood beside Noah, hands in my pockets, trying not to feel too much. Then I said it, because I couldn't hold it in anymore. They don't know. He turned. About me? I nodded. I never told them. I didn't want them growing up asking why their father wasn't there. His jaw tightened, not anger, something heavier. I should have been there, he said, and I told him the truth. You couldn't, they made sure of that. He looked down, then back at the kids. I'm going to find out who did this. That night, after the twins were asleep, I walked out and found Noah at his desk. A file open, rental histories, old addresses, legal papers, proof that I didn't just leave. I was pushed. I didn't see everything, but I saw enough, and at the bottom, a name he knew too well, Richard Cole, his uncle, someone powerful enough to erase a life quietly. Noah's hand tightened on the papers. When I asked, he closed the folder. Said it was nothing I needed to see tonight. I knew it wasn't nothing. I knew it was the kind of truth that changes everything, but I didn't have the energy to open it right then. Maybe he knew that. Maybe that's why he let it wait. The next day, he asked me to meet him for coffee near the harbor. The cold pressed against the glass while we sat there, hands around our cups. Noah looked at me, said he thought he knew who forced me out, and he wasn't letting it happen again. I tightened my grip before I even noticed. Noah, don't. Because I knew what this could cost. But he cut in. Calm. Steady. This time I'm not standing back. I'm going to deal with him. I held his gaze, then asked the only thing that mattered. And when the truth comes out, about us, about them, he leaned forward slightly, eyes steady, and said, then the world will know exactly what I'm willing to fight for. Because this time, I'm not losing my family to someone else's decisions. That night felt too quiet when Noah came back, the kind of quiet that usually means something is about to break. Snow was still on his coat when he stepped in. I was at the sink, rinsing dishes, trying to keep my hands busy so my mind wouldn't wander. I need to tell you something, he said. My hands stopped under the water. Go ahead. It's Richard. He's the one who pushed you out of my life. He's been behind it since the beginning. I turned slowly, drying my hands. And now he knows I'm back. Noah hesitated. He will. 2 days later. We didn't have to wonder anymore. The phone rang while Noah was out. I picked it up. Maya Reed. We finally speak again. His voice was calm. Too calm. What do you want? To remind you. Your time here is temporary. Leave before it gets difficult. I have more reach than you think. My grip tightened on the phone. I'm not afraid of you. He gave a quiet laugh. Then you've forgotten how this works. Ask yourself, can you protect them? The line went dead. When Noah came back, I was still standing by the window, phone in my hand. Richard called. I said. His jaw tightened. Good. Then it started, and I'm not letting him win this time. The next morning, Noah walked into the boardroom, and from what he told me later, Richard was already there. Relaxed. Like he owned the outcome. You're letting emotions cloud your judgment, Richard said. This situation is a liability. Step back and the board forgets it. Noah didn't raise his voice. They're my children. She's the woman I love. I'm not stepping away. Richard didn't smile after that. Then, be ready for what comes next. That night, I found Noah in his study, staring at a document. I stepped closer. Temporary custody. They're coming after us, I said. No, they're coming after me, he answered, steady. And they're going to regret it. The next morning felt colder, even inside the apartment. I was cutting apples for the kids, trying to stay focused on something simple. Noah walked in, phone still in his hand. They're going public. Press conference tomorrow. He's going to say you're unfit. And I'm reckless. I gripped the counter. And the kids? They'll use them, which is why we move first. That afternoon, his lawyer came. Marissa Grant, sharp, direct. If you want to win, she said, you speak first. Control the story. Noah, you handle the board. Maya, you tell the truth about what happened 6 years ago. My shoulders stiffened. You mean stand there and tell strangers how I was pushed out? How I raised them alone while his family made sure he never knew? Marissa softened slightly. Yes, because if you don't, he will twist it. Noah stepped closer, his hand resting lightly over mine. You won't be alone. The next day, the boardroom was packed, cameras everywhere. Richard sat at the far end, smiling like this was just another meeting. Noah stood at the front. Steady. Before anything else, he said, I need to make something clear. There's been talk about my personal life. And just like that, everything we had tried to keep quiet was about to be said out loud. The moment Noah said it out loud, I knew there was no going back. He stood there in front of everyone, steady, calm, like he had already accepted the cost. I have 2 children, and I will protect them, and their mother, no matter what it costs me, or this company. The room shifted. You could feel it. Whispers spreading. People looking at each other, like something had just broken. And for the first time, Richard's smile slipped. Downstairs. It was my turn. The microphones felt closer than they looked. Cameras everywhere. But for once, I didn't feel like running. My kids were upstairs. Safe. And this was mine to face. I took a breath. 6 years ago, I was in love with Noah Hayes. You could hear it. The reaction. The surprise. We had a life planned, until someone in his family made it clear. If I stayed, they would destroy us. I paused. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because saying it out loud made it real again. I left, thinking I was protecting him, and our unborn children. That was the moment everything changed. I'm here now, because I'm done running. My children deserve their father, and we deserve a life without fear. After that, things moved fast. Faster than I expected. The story spread everywhere. Online, on TV, people picking sides. And for once, the truth wasn't buried. That night, I sat on the couch, exhaustion finally catching up to me. You were right, I told Noah quietly. We had to say it. He reached for my hand. We're not done yet, but now we're not hiding either. The city outside blurred into lights and snow. Later, I brought him tea. They're talking about it everywhere, I said. Schools, news, even people we don't know. He gave a small nod. The more people know, the harder it is for him to twist it. The next morning, Noah walked into the office. And this time, nobody looked away. They just waited. Richard was already there, still acting like he had control. You made a mess, he said. But messes don't last. Noah didn't react, just placed a folder in front of him. Not when there's proof. Inside. Everything Richard thought he'd hidden. Financial moves, decisions made in the dark, piece by piece. It was all there. You think this saves you? Richard snapped. No, Noah said calmly, but it ends you. By midday. It was over. The board voted. Unanimous. Richard Cole. Suspended. Investigation opened. Just like that. The man who thought he controlled everything didn't anymore. When Noah walked out, I was waiting. It's over? I asked. For him? Yes, he said, then looked at me. For us, it's just starting. That weekend, we went back. Tremont Street. The bench was still there, covered in snow. I sat down, ran my hand over the cold metal. This is where everything changed. Noah sat beside me, his hand finding mine, or where it started again. The kids were laughing nearby, like none of the past had ever touched them. And for the first time, I let myself believe. Maybe we didn't lose everything. Maybe we just had to fight to get it back. The snow started falling again. But this time, I didn't feel cold. And in the days after, everything got quieter, not empty, just normal. Mornings filled with footsteps down the hallway. Laughter before breakfast. The kind of noise you don't notice until you almost lose it. The first time I realized things had really changed. It wasn't anything big. It was something small. It was the way I moved around the kitchen without thinking. Like I wasn't just staying there anymore. Like I belonged. The apartment didn't feel cold or distant anymore. It felt lived in. One night, after the kids had fallen asleep, I found Noah in his study, looking over a set of plans. "You're still working?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not work, just ideas." He tapped the paper. "A housing project. Safe. Affordable. For families who've been where you were that night." I didn't say anything right away. "You don't have to do that because of me." He looked at me. "I'm not doing it because of you." Then softer. "I'm doing it because I should have been there 6 years ago. And for the first time, that didn't feel like something broken between us." Weeks later, the city was covered in fresh snow again. We stood outside a brownstone in South Boston, newly rebuilt, warm lights inside, ready for families to move in. There were reporters nearby. But Noah kept me just out of it, his hand resting lightly behind my back. "This isn't about us," he said quietly. "It's about them." Still, when the kids ran past us laughing, someone caught that moment. And later, I saw the photo. Noah smiling. Me reaching for his hand without thinking. It wasn't a scandal. It was just a moment. And maybe that's what made it matter. That night, we walked back along Tremont Street. The same street. The same place. I stopped at the bench, the one where everything had started. Snow covered it now, quiet, still. "We could have missed all of this," I said. Noah took my hand. "We almost did." We stood there for a long time, not saying anything. And for once, silence didn't feel heavy. It felt settled. In the distance, the lights of the apartment glowed. Our lives weren't perfect, they weren't simple, but they were ours again. And for the first time in years, I wasn't looking back anymore. I was finally ready to stay. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Life doesn't always break you in one moment. Sometimes it pulls things apart slowly, until you don't even recognize what you've lost. And sometimes, you don't get a second chance because you deserve it. You get it because you're finally ready to stop running. This story is inspired by real-life emotions and situations, but some details have been adapted for storytelling. If this meant something to you, if you've ever had to walk away or fight to come back, tell me in the comments. And if you stayed all the way to the end, subscribe, because stories like this, they don't just happen once,